Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. Today, I would like to talk about how do you notice when you're thankful? I know, Steve, you had a reaction when I sent that idea out. What are your thoughts?
My first thought was, oh my God, what am I doing here? The thought that you can define or that you have to track down how you know you're thankful kind of made me think that this conversation, for me at least, will be an educational experience. I'm going to learn some stuff. My second thought was, no, you have to be able to get past the words into the feelings and then try and describe the feelings.
Sarah, what about you?
I will continue Steve's thought, the second one about translating words into feelings, because that was my first response. Like, oh my gosh, how do I know what I'm thankful? What do I feel? And it feels so many different things. You know, some would describe it as grounding feeling. Some would describe it as elated. I have been all over the spectrum, but it's this feeling that I learned how to cultivate over the years. And I know from experience that oftentimes we just forget about it because we're so living in the future and so living consumed with what is there yet to create and what we're after, to just forget to acknowledge what there is.
And we hear so much about how gratitude is so important and we need to make sure that we have gratitude. But that's what kind of broached the question for me, is that people talk about gratitude like it's something that just magically happens, but you have to notice. And so for me, what I've done, and this may work for other people, it may not, but I've created little things in my life that remind me. So it started out with anytime I looked at the clock and the numbers were consecutive, like 3, 4 or 5, 6, and there's a lot of opportunities in the day for the clock to have consecutive numbers. But anytime I noticed a consecutive number, that was a reminder for me to stop and think about, what am I grateful about? What am I thankful for? And now it's become to the point, I've been doing it long enough that anytime I look at the clock, my brain goes directly to, what am I thankful for in this moment? So that for me has been a big aha.
Yeah.
That's a really, really interesting notion that you can create a mnemonic or an anchor that gives you that kick up the backside to be grateful for what you have. And then as you were saying that, I realized that when my partner and I go walking in the morning, we live out in the country, and we will regularly say, I'm so grateful for where we live, or I love where we live. I love the fact that we're right by the water. I love the fact that there's no traffic here. And that's gratitude, you know, the fact that you can actually acknowledge it's not just going past the car window, it's actually stuff you can smell and see and touch and acknowledge. But actually then being able to turn back on that and say, yeah, that's gratitude. I'm grateful for where my life has taken me to leave me where I am right now.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It doesn't have to be actually using the word thankful or gratitude or anything. It could just be acknowledgement.
I had a very intimate experience that has been going on for a couple of years. After my second daughter was born, I had postpartum depression, severe burnout that got me to the ER. And I was in this space where our home, our environment, I was literally running away from it. I was like, I don't want to be for me. I outgrew this space. Get me out. And it took a toll on me, it took a toll on my marriage, it took a toll on the business. And then through years of really working on myself, I got this epiphany. It was like, well, if I create my own reality, how can I change that? And I started being more grateful. And I would even tell my husband, I was like, I'm so thankful for things that I never even said thank you for. I am grateful for you being here. I'm grateful for this. And at first he looked at me like I had two heads. Like, where are you coming from? But eventually what happened was that everything shifted. And by the time pandemic hit, I was in the space of like, wow, this is my sanctuary. I am so grateful that I get to be here with my family in this space, exactly where we are. And it allowed me to really, it's going to sound probably insensitive, but I was like, I'm grateful for everything that happened because it allowed us to really hunker down, reconnect, and be here, be safe. So it can really be life-changing.
It does. I think it does make a difference when you start noticing that how good things are. It makes you better prepared, stronger, more able to deal with stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with things like, no, who wants to get bills in the mail, right? But you're like, oh, I'm so thankful for having the capacity, for having the opportunity to support others, to take care of this. And it changes the whole narrative.
Well, and for me, when, the way I try to view bills, and this is new for me in the last several years, but I try to view them as what a wonderful opportunity that I have the ability to have electricity, this bill means that I can flip a switch and light comes on in my house. That's what that bill represents for me. Okay. Or I can turn the faucet and water, clean, drinkable water comes out of it.
Exactly.
So, and it sounds like the old me would be like, this is so ridiculous. But I have turned into the kind of person who wants to appreciate what I have.
Yep.
I think there's a case. I used to be a photographer many years ago, and one of the principles, one of the precepts that I learned when I was at college studying photography was the concept of negative space, so that the subject is thrown into sharp focus or into the viewer's eye by the amount of negative space, non-event, out of focus or neutral space around it, and using neutral space or negative space to create a real sense of a dynamic within the picture. And when it comes to things like gratitude or happiness or thankfulness, I think the same thing is true. You are more likely to recognize gratitude for what you have if you have not had it, if you have been denied that for any reason at any point in your life. So, you live in the projects or in a nasty flat in Glasgow for 10 years, and then somebody says, well, no, let's move you somewhere nice and give you this nice 2-bed apartment with a garden and all the rest of it. Then because you may have been existing, and you may have been grateful for what you had, but all of a sudden here's stuff that is so much more. And you wouldn't appreciate it so much had you not had so much less before.
So do we have to lose things in order to appreciate them? Or is there a way for us to notice the wonderful things? Like, I try really hard to remember every day when I'm working out how fortunate I am to have a body that can lift weights and that can, go to the gym and it can, I'm capable of doing those things. I'm healthy enough. I try to remember that every day. How can we be better at noticing?
I think you have to look at the reflection of whatever the condition is, whether it be physical or emotional or mental. Touching on the physical, currently my knee is trashed, and I've had an operation on the knee years ago, 20 years ago. The reason it's vulnerable is because I played American football. I loved playing football. I would not trade one moment of my football, even knowing that a 10K walk is a struggle when I'm in my 60s. Yeah. Even knowing that was on the horizon, I would still have gone and played the game. So sometimes we do things because they feel right at the time, and there's nobody ever can deny what's right and what's wrong to the individual if that's in the moment what they feel they need to do.
Sara, what are your final thoughts on how can we be better at noticing and being grateful for the amazing lives that we get to live?
The initial answer would be it comes down to personal choice.
Yes.
And also perspective. I think a lot of individuals, a lot of communities have been faced with a different perspective just this past year. But yeah, just responsibility and personal choice, and then knowing that, with all these yearnings that we have for what we still want to create and experience, being thankful and being in this moment of gratitude is going to solidify the stepping stone you need to get to what's next.
Yeah, I appreciate so much that you said that it's a choice. And I think that that's so true. And I think as I've gotten older, I've become more and more observant of the choices I get to make and the opportunities I get to have to be thankful and to have gratitude. So I am very grateful to you for all having this conversation with me today, because it has been Wonderful. So I appreciate that. And I look forward to doing it again real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robyn. Thanks, Sarah.